He outweighed her by 140 pounds. He had never refused a command in 4 years. Until that Tuesday. Margot Tilson had owned Atlas since before her daughter existed. A Saint Bernard, 4 years old, trained, calm, the kind of dog that moved through a house like furniture. Always there, never in the way. She had been a home renovation contractor for 9 years. She understood old houses. She had pulled hazardous wiring from walls in 7 states. She knew exactly what she was looking at when something was wrong. She was wrong that Tuesday. The kitchen renovation had finished 3 weeks prior. New cabinets, new range, new gas line running to the cooktop. The contractor who ran the gas line was licensed. The permit was pulled. The inspector signed off. Margot had checked the work herself. Everything was correct. Everything was fine. Atlas began refusing the kitchen on a Monday. Not dramatically, he simply stopped crossing the threshold. He ate his dinner from the hallway when Margot set his bowl inside. She moved the bowl to the hall. She assumed he had been startled by something during the renovation. A sound, a smell, a pressure change. Dogs developed aversions. She had read that. Her daughter, Ela, was 13 months old. She sat in the kitchen in her high chair every morning and ate soft pears and oat cereal. She sat in the kitchen while Margot made dinner. She crawled through the kitchen 17 times a day. It had always been their room. Atlas started blocking the kitchen doorway on Tuesday morning. Not growling, not aggressive. He simply lay across the entrance and would not move when Isla crawled toward it. Margot stepped over him, moved Isla around him. He repositioned. She pushed him gently with her knee. He looked at her and got up and lay back down in the same spot. Her mother, Connie, who was visiting that week, watched from the living room and said what Margot was already thinking. Something is wrong with that dog. Margot had worked with large breeds before. She knew what an animal that had decided something was its territory looked like. She called her vet, left a message. She moved Isla's high chair into the dining room, just to be safe, just until she understood. If you stay for stories about what animals sense before we do, you are in the right place. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. That night, Margot put Atlas in the back bedroom. He scratched at the door for 2 hours. She put a white noise machine outside it and went to sleep. At 3:14 in the morning, she woke to the sound of the back bedroom door hitting the wall. She didn't know how he got it open. The latch had been engaged. She found him in the hallway outside the kitchen, standing at full height, every muscle angled toward the doorway, exhaling in short bursts through his nose. She stood in the hall in the dark and watched him for 7 seconds. Then she smelled it. Not gas. Something flatter. Something that didn't belong. She grabbed Isla from her crib. She got Connie out of the guest room. She got all 3 of them out the front door before she called 911. The fire department arrived in 8 minutes. The carbon monoxide detector on the kitchen wall had a battery that had been installed upside down during the renovation. It had never activated. The CO level in the kitchen registered at 187 parts per million when they opened the door. Dangerous begins at 70. The gas line fitting behind the new range had a microfracture in the compression seal, invisible to the eye, producing a slow, unburned gas leak that had been accumulating in the kitchen cavity for 19 days. Has your dog ever refused a room without reason? Tell us in the comments. These stories deserve to be heard. The fire investigator, Dale Okonkwo, with 22 years in hazardous structure assessment, told Margot directly. Carbon monoxide displaces oxygen in the blood silently. An adult in that kitchen, for 40 minutes at that level, would have experienced confusion, then loss of coordination, then unconsciousness. A 13-month-old would have reached unconscious threshold significantly faster. He looked at the dog. He said, most detectors are calibrated for human exposure thresholds. Dogs detect CO at concentrations far below the point where hardware triggers. He didn't say the rest. He didn't have to. Every guardian deserves to be recognized, even the ones who never asked for anything in return. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe so you never miss the next one. Margot had the gas line replaced the following week. She bought 4 hardwired CO detectors with battery backup. She had the kitchen inspected by a separate licensed plumber and signed off by a second inspector. Atlas came back into the kitchen on the day the new range was installed. He ate his dinner from his bowl in the corner and did not leave. Isla sat in her high chair 10 feet away eating soft pears from a spoon. Atlas watched her the way he had always watched her, the way he had watched her since the day she came home from the hospital. Steady, present, not moving. Margot stood in the doorway she had pushed him away from and understood that he had been standing in it too, from the other direction. The next story is about a family who thought their dog had turned on their child. The dog was the only one in the house reading what was actually happening.